Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, rabbil alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulil kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum, my dear sisters. I know it's been a long day. You're all waiting to get home, but I'm sure it's been a very fruitful one and a lot of takeaways. So, I don't want to make it long. So I'm going straight into my topic. My topic is understanding and tackling Islamophobia. And when I'm done with this topic, I want all of us to go back to our loved ones, families and communities and help them fight Islamophobia and with Allah's help win it, inshallah. My first statement today is Islamophobia happens because of who we are and not because of what we do. It is our identity and our existence that is under attack and discriminated against. And hence, it is very important that we know Islamophobia well and clear and fight it. So, what are we talking about? What is Islamophobia? Islamophobia is rooted in racism and specifically targets the expression of Muslim identity or Muslimness, as well as those who are perceived to be Muslims, regardless of their actual religious beliefs. So, and this definition is adopted by APPG, which is All-Party Parliamentary Group on British Muslims, and is widely endorsed across Muslim communities, political parties, and civil societies. So for this definition, there has been a lot of pushback, and one of it was Islam is a religion and Muslims are not a race. But the discrimination and prejudice that Muslims experience often stem from similar underlying thought patterns and stereotypes as racism. It is important to note that race itself is a socially constructed concept. It is not a scientifically valid one. Racism operates on the basis of these social constructs, and Islamophobia can function in a similar way, targeting individuals because of their perceived religious or ethnic identity. And the concept of Muslimness is essential in understanding the nuances of Islamophobia as it addresses the various ways in which people can be targeted for their perceived association with Islam. This would include their beliefs, practices, clothing, or even cultural identity. So, how can we identify it? It is important that we as individuals and activists and collectively as organizations see it very clearly from a mile. First one is hate speech, which is dissemination of derogatory, offensive or prejudiced remarks directed at Muslims or Islam, such as racist slurs, negative stereotypes in social media, and offensive cartoons depicting Muslims or Islamic figures. This is Islamophobia. Discrimination, unequal treatment or exclusion based on religious beliefs, for example, workplace discrimination, racial profiling, religious dress code restriction, or unfair treatment at airports. I'm sure all of us, or many of us, would have experienced these treatments. Violence and harassments, physical or verbal abuses targeted at individuals, example, assaults on Muslims, vandalizing mosques or Islamic centers, and incidents of bullying or intimidation against Muslims. Political Islamophobia, immigration bans, invasive surveillance of Muslim communities, and discriminatory laws targeting Islamic practices. Stereotyping and prejudice, generalizations about Islam and Muslims that are negative and harmful, such as media portrayals depicting Muslims as terrorists or extremists, assumptions that all Muslims are conservatives or oppressive. Today we listened to Sister Shaima and her experience regarding the same. Yeah. Some of the examples of Islamophobia. Let me very quickly run and remind you of some of the events which have a global nature. The hijab ban. In some European countries, policies have been implemented that bans or restrict Islamic clothing such as hijab or burqa, arguing that they uphold secularism or women's rights. Critics claim these policies target Muslim women and contribute to Islamophobia. In India, the ban on Muslim students who wore the hijab and the media's and right-wing political parties' deliberate smear about choosing religion over education when Muslim students were banned from their campuses only because of their hijab. Destruction of mosques. People know of Babri Masjid in India. But the sad reality is that several mosques have been destroyed and even more continues to be vandalized. Uyghur cultural genocide. The Chinese government's oppressive policies against Uyghur Muslims, including mass detention in re-education camps and forced assimilations, have attracted global condemnation for specifically targeting Islamic religious and cultural practices. Christchurch mosque shootings. In March 2019, white supremacist attacks on 2 mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand, led to the death of 51 people and injured 40 others. The attacker referenced anti-Islamic ideology and far-right conspiracy theories. The travel ban in US, 2017, the US administration's executive order restricted entry from several predominantly Muslim countries, including Iran, Libya, Somalia, Syria, and Yemen, sparkling outrage and protest around the world. Critics labeled this as well as an example of Islamophobia. And last week I read in a newspaper that Trump is still upholding this on his election rally, that he will bring back this US ban if he is elected. Next is effects of Islamophobia. So Islamophobia, like any form of bigotry or discrimination, has numerous harmful effects on individuals and communities. So some of the negative impacts of Islamophobia are violations of human rights and even death of innocent people. Islamophobia can manifest in the form of hate crimes, vandalism of mosques, or physical assaults on Muslims. These incidents are not only direct violation of people's basic human rights, but they also create an atmosphere of fear and intimidation. Not just Muslims. The first victim of Islamophobia post 9/11 was a Sikh man. This is the assumed racial part, and he was maybe due to his turban or due to his beard. Social exclusion. Prejudice against Muslims often leads to their social exclusion. This marginalization can limit their access to education, job opportunities, and social networks, which can result in feelings of isolation and alienation. Economic exclusion. Discrimination against Muslims in the workplace can result in reduced job opportunities, income disparities, and a higher risk of living in poverty. MCD's research indicates that there is a strong presence of discrimination against Muslims in the job market. Muslim women, particularly those who wear the hijab, are disproportionately facing discrimination in job interviews and mental health issues. The constant fear, prejudice, and social exclusion Muslim individuals face can take a toll on their mental health, resulting in anxiety, depression, or post-traumatic stress disorder. This can further exacerbate feelings of isolation and reduce their overall quality of life. Let's also not forget our children who are victims. So how bad is it? People submitting CVs with Muslim-sounding names 3 times likely to get job interviews. For every 1 moderate Muslim mentioned in the press, there are 21 references to extremist Muslims. And Childline recorded a 69% increase in racist bullying to playgrounds, with the most common terms used being bombers and terrorists. So what do we do? There are many, but today I want to focus on 2 powerful ways. First one is supporting anti-discrimination policies, like implement legislation that prohibits discrimination based on religion or belief, promote and enforce strong hate crime laws, specifically addressing Islamophobia, ensure that workplace and educational institutions provide fair accommodations for Muslim employees or students. The second one is strengthening community relations. We have been hearing this a lot today. Foster collaboration between Muslims and non-Muslim organizations working towards common goals. Encourage high-profile figures to speak out against Islamophobia and promote tolerance. So what will you do? Let's have a look at some of the common instances of Islamophobia that can happen to any of us. Some of the few examples: an Islamophobic story in a leading newspaper, a hijabi woman being attacked verbally, a Muslim child who is bullied at school and being called a terrorist, a politician makes bad, insulting remarks about the Muslim dress, discrimination at the workplace only because of faith. The first thing we have to do is do not accept it being all right. Do not accept it, never ever. So let's see each scenarios and see what we can do. An Islamophobic story in a leading newspaper. Complain to IPSO. IPSO is the Independent Press Standards Organization, and write to the editor with your complaint. Make the effort. If a hijabi woman being attacked, if a hijabi woman is being attacked verbally, use phone to record, inform police, comfort victim, make the effort. A Muslim child is bullied at school, inform their parents about child line, comfort them, raise it with the school, make that effort. A politician makes bad, insulting remarks about the Muslim dress, write to the MP, use social media, email the press with your outrage, make that effort. Discrimination at workplace, only because of faith, HR needs to know, talk to the organization like men, tell mama, and explore options, express support to the colleague, make that effort. Now, we must work collectively in addressing inequality and sustaining respect and harmony in society. Collaboration across all sectors, from governments to media outlets, is essential to tackle this issue heads-on. Be very careful of those who say some of the hate is because the Muslim community is also partly at fault. It's like saying rape victims encouraged it. It's like saying black communities and victims of anti-Semitic violence in some way are also partly to blame for the crimes against them. That is exactly what you are doing when you try to balance the blame. Support for the victim should be unconditional. Islamophobia happens because of who we are and not because what we do. We would like to call upon each one of us to remain vigilant against Islamophobia and all the forms.